Good afternoon. Thank you so very much for being here today. It's really my pleasure to welcome you to the Fraud Fighters, the Iowa Fraud Fighters Luncheon. Just want to thank you for participating in this event today. I think you're going to learn a fair amount, and actually I hope at some point during the time you have an opportunity to share with us some of the things that you've learned over the years. I am Insurance Commissioner Doug Oman. I have the great opportunity to serve as your host today, so again, welcome. I want to start with a little bit of background about why it is that we do these events. In addition to being your insurance commissioner, I also serve as the regulator of investments here in Iowa. And it was a number of years ago that our legislature passed legislation to create, as part of our investor protection laws, an investor education component. In other words, they expressly gave me responsibility for going around to provide information to people, because we've learned over the years how really incredibly valuable education is in helping people protect themselves. So it was the commissioner before I started serving who began this program back in 2013. But over the years, we've had a great partnership with the Iowa Attorney General's Office, as well as our SHIIP program and local law enforcement, to really get out into the community to give you information to help equip yourselves on how to protect yourselves. That's why we call it a Fraud Fighters event. But the reality is you might come into this thinking you're going to hear from fraud fighters. The reality is you are the fraud fighters. We need you to be the fighters in your communities to help protect yourself as well as protect others among you. Our investor education mission is funded through the process of the Investor Education Fund. And so, one of the things we warn people about is be careful about that free lunch. We figure the best way we can get your attention is to offer to you a free lunch. But it's also really important for you to understand that the way we are able to provide this to you is because of the fact that when we prosecute scammers, one of the things that we do, in addition to trying to recover restitution, is we have the authority under our statute to impose fines. So I want you to know that your lunch today was bought and paid for by scammers who took money from Iowans. So thank you very much for being here. As I mentioned, our investor protection mission is pretty comprehensive here in Iowa. We take great effort at trying to make sure that we reach all demographics. Obviously, from those of you, as you look around in the room, the purpose of this particular program is to bring attention to older Iowans so that we all understand what, again, you can do to help protect yourselves. But we also work with middle school children. We work with high school. We're involved throughout life, and you can see listed up here a number of the programs that we are involved in. I'll just briefly mention two that are up there that are relatively new. One is the Save for Later program. That is designed to help us as an agency work with others, again, other partners, to help people that as they're leaning forward toward retirement, that they better understand what it is that they can do, Iowans can do in order to prepare for that retirement day. That's our Save for Later program. And then in addition to that, we began this year a Smart Home Money program. And frankly, that's the recognition that in American homes, women have taken a great amount of responsibility in terms of planning and finances. And so again, we want to partner with other folks to help make sure that Iowans are best prepared for retirement. So you'll hear more about that later. What we did find is, as we put in our attention to this idea of Iowa Fraud Fighters, is we understood that fraud is a big business. The estimates vary, but it's as much as $3 billion a year that are scammed. The numbers of people that are scammed across the United States is frankly staggering. As we all know, it's easier and easier to reach people. We know that, we appreciate it. We find it convenient to carry a phone around in our pockets, but the scammers know that too. So the scammers know and use those kinds of new systems in order to reach into your pockets and to try to take your money. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But what we do know is that education is a big part of how it is that we can better prepare you to deflect, to avoid, to prevent that scam. You know, one of the things, again, that we're very aware of is sort of the embarrassment that comes with being scammed. I think that that's just kind of part of human nature. But the problem with that is things just don't get reported. You know, scams go on for a time. People do lose money. And if it's not reported, you're not really giving law enforcement the opportunity to step in to try to stop it. And so we see that in human nature where people are just not able to report it. What we're going to do at this time is show to you a video of Martha Jo. And I call her Martha Jo. She's been willing to allow us to use her story now for several years. Martha Jo is an individual who got scammed. And I'll talk a little bit more about this, but what makes her a hero for me is her willingness to let us share her story to help you better understand what it means to be a victim. Let's play the video.
It was 2 postcards that came in the mail, and one of them had to do with investment, and the other one was information about Social Security. And I laid them aside, intending to order the one about Social Security. When I signed them, I signed the wrong one and shredded the one that I should have kept, and that brought somebody to my door at a later time. Well, I figured out what had happened, and I finally reluctantly did let him in. He said he would only take 15 minutes, and it lasted much longer than that, of course. They offered a really high interest rate, and about that time we sold some property, and they knew about that. And I think that's what kept them coming back and keeping in touch with me, because they knew that I was going to have some income and would have something to invest. I handed over a check for my half of the sale of farm property that was over $1 million. And I handed over, he talked me out of the annuity that I had been adding to from my paycheck from teaching for 40-some years. And he told me that that we needed to get it out of the annuity, that if I didn't get it out of there, I would lose it. I always thought that people had to be pretty stupid to let it take place, but I sure got fooled, and I was well aware that things like that went on. But I think you have to watch out, because they have all kinds of charming things to say and get you off your guard. I still think about it frequently when I get in bed before I go to sleep, and I wake up in the morning, and if I'm lying there getting awake, I start thinking about it again, and I just about have to block it out of my mind, because I can ruin my whole day thinking about what could have been. I'll never be in the place I was before it happened. Things are better than they were, but it'll never be the same. I don't trust people as much as I used to. I know that I won't let anybody in my front door that I don't know, whether they're wanting my money or something else, and I certainly would have a better idea of who to check with and not try to figure it out for myself when it isn't something I'm knowledgeable about. You just have to be very careful. Because you can ruin the rest of your life if you aren't.
So Martha Jo is a hero because she allows us to tell her story. The reality is from the work that we've done in the insurance division and in the Attorney General's office, and I know for those that are in local law enforcement, we hear these stories, unfortunately, over and over again. The scammers they really do target Iowa, and they target people that are older. We know that to be the case. One of the things that I always want people to think about is that idea of double checking when it comes to an investment. Martha Jo did contact our office. Unfortunately, though, she contacted our office not before she invested, but after she invested. And the reality is that sometimes it's only a couple of days. In her case, it was a couple of weeks. That is the difference between contacting our office before you invest and avoiding losing the money, and contacting our office and complaining about the fact that you have lost your money. With investments, nearly every investment that is offered here in the state of Iowa has to go through a regulatory process. As I said, that if Martha Jo had contacted us before she had invested, we would have been able to tell her that the investment that was being offered to her, those promoters were already under investigation, that we had already received other information and complaints about what was going on, and we could have helped Martha Jo avoid losing the money. And that's kind of the situation with a lot of investments. That is, if you're going through a registered or licensed investment professional, a securities agent, or a broker that you do business with, you at least know that the individual's gone through the process of getting appropriately licensed. For Martha Jo, it was not that case. These were individuals that were committing crimes within our state. They were committing felonies. The fraud that they were perpetrating on Iowans did result in them getting prosecuted. They were sentenced to prison. But there is never enough justice to try to make right what individuals have done to people like Martha Jo. And so we know that by coming to talking to communities, we can share with you this information. We can encourage you to think about it. We can encourage you to talk to your neighbors and others within your social community to help better avoid this kind of scam, because of the fact that we do know that millions and millions of dollars are lost here in Iowa. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the top scams that we see. As I mentioned, most investments that are sold in our state are required to go through a regulatory process. We call that registration. Not all of them, but certainly that's something that you should know and understand before you make an investment. Some of the top scams we see, and the first one I've got listed up here is that idea of a Ponzi scheme. And most of us sort of understand what a Ponzi scheme is, but with Martha Jo, what that was is the situation where it starts out with a few investors, and then in order to pay some returns to the earlier investors, the scammers have to go out and find more investors. So it looks a little bit like a pyramid, but the result of that is when it's all done and the money has been spent and lost, or to some degree sent back to earlier investors, the people that get in at the end, like Martha Jo, they lose everything. So those Ponzi schemes, again, are something that have been around for some time. It's really easy if a promoter tries to submit a registration submission to our office for review, really easy for us to tell that it's a Ponzi scheme. So one of the things, again, you should do is, if it sounds too good to be true, don't confuse it with it may be too good to be true, but you can conclude if it sounds too good to be true, you should conclude it is too good to be true, because there aren't these big returns out there without substantial risk. And Ponzi's will always promise a big return without risk. So again, please double check. The second one I would talk about is the idea of Bitcoin and currency. The scammers use whatever is in the news in order to appeal to investors. So they're going to take things that are being discussed and found, you can go to any of the financial publications, the Wall Street Journal, and you'll see this kind of news. They will use that, and then they'll dial you up and try to persuade you that they are in the know. They're on the ground floor, and we are seeing a lot of these activities surrounding Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And there are two ways that they can scam you. One way is to persuade you to turn your American currency into Bitcoin because it's really hard to trace the investment. So that's one way, but they'll also solicit cryptocurrency investments. My advice to you is some of those ideas, they may be appropriate, they may make sense, but you really need to understand what you're doing if you decide to take any of your retirement money to put it into cryptocurrency. It's just an area fraught with risk as well as fraught with fraud. We still see oil and gas scams, and I've been doing this for a number of years now. The oil and gas is always in the news, but it's not just oil and gas. You'll see with some of the solar, wind, and other opportunities with energy, scams. So again, be mindful of the fact that you should double check before you invest, because the scammers know, again, they're going to use local news, they're going to use national news and stories in order to get your trust and steal your money. We still see precious metal scams, and again, this is something that you see in times of some economic uncertainty, which it seems like we're in, again, times of economic uncertainty with inflation and things that are changing. The scammers know that, and they will try to appeal to you as they have information that you may not have. Precious metals are often a way in which that they will separate you from your money. One such recent case was a lawsuit, an enforcement action that we joined with federal authorities against Metals Inc. It's a metals.com, but we know from information gathered through that process, it was a scam. But there's $185 million that were lost in that kind of operation. And these things can take on the appearances of everything that looks legitimate, except for the fact that there are opportunities where the promoters have not, again, gone through that process of getting registration. We still see promissory note scams, and this information is available in your book. Promissory notes are often tied, if you have multiple investors, they're often tied to that concept of Ponzi schemes. For some reason, investors seem to think that if they have a promissory note, that there's something that's really enforceable. It's the guarantee of a principal along with an interest rate, something that you're going to do better at than if you would go down to the local financial institution and obtain a CD. But the reality is that oftentimes those promises are not worth the paper that they're written on. So again, you must know that you should double check, because we see a lot of complaints and scams associated with promissory notes. One such case not too far from here was an individual named Bruce Hauptman, and he was an individual. He was soliciting from people within his own social circle. Now, oftentimes what we'll see with the promissory note scam is people will start out with the idea of maybe having some legitimacy because, again, it's a very low engagement investment. What I mean by that is investors often don't think that they need to know about the profit or the profit center or the business plan behind the investment, because they have a promissory note that guarantees a note, it's enforceable, and you have that guarantee of interest. But again, the problem with that is if there's not something behind that promissory note that's generating real profit, oftentimes the only way the promoter can get enough money in order to continue to pay that interest is to go out and scam other people. And that's what Mr. Hauptman did. He started small. He started to take money from some of his friends and neighbors, et cetera, but it grew through the entire community. Ultimately, after investigation, he fled to the state of Nevada. We chased him down. He ended up being prosecuted and went to prison. Unfortunately, again, that was an unregistered investment. If investors had called us again before investing, rather than waiting until after they realized something was wrong, we could have helped avoid that scam. Let's go ahead and move to the affinity fraud. And I talked just generally about friends and associates. We are seeing this sort of investment scam now surfacing as folks, again, among older Iowans or on social media. The scammers know that, and they're going to use social media as a means by which to, again, find their way into your pocket. The way they do that is just like any sort of friend making is they can, if you are on social media, they can do homework and find out a lot about you. And by doing that, they can create that feeling of friendship and affinity, because what we've learned as we've watched scammers over the years is they want to be like you, not because they are like you, but because they want you to trust them so they can steal your money. So if you're on social media, you're putting out a lot of information that they're able to then use and consider and think about, because they want to make you trust them. They want you to trust them so, again, they can take your money. And with social media, that's a really great tool for them. So in terms of what we see all sorts of scams, but by and large, although they come in all shapes and sizes, they often use the same sorts of techniques when they're scamming. They'll try to persuade you with kindness, but then they'll often couple that with intimidation. In other words, they'll try to be your friend, but then we have found with older Iowans, they'll then use intimidation in order to get you to do something that you otherwise may not want to do. They use those ideas of persuasion and intimidation together. I have heard in the course of my work in law enforcement, I have heard recordings where the scammers just are terribly mean to people in Iowa who are Iowa nice. But they do that in order to intimidate action, and so again, be very aware of that. Scammers are going to prey on your emotions. They'll use those ideas of excitement, fear, and love in order to do that. Oftentimes using that idea of emotion to make you do something you otherwise would not do. So ultimately, as you know, their goal is to earn your trust and then take your money. We historically have called that the con game, right? That's the confidence game, to get your confidence so that you're willing to give up your hard-earned money. Though we also just simply know that anyone can be the victim of a fraud. But we also know, and the reason we're here is that the scammers target older Iowans. And there's lots of reasons for that. But one of the primary reasons is because oftentimes older Iowans are found alone. And when you're alone, you're looking sometimes for somebody to talk to, and the scammers know that. They want to be your friend. So they look for people who are widowed. They find individuals who live alone. They also look for people who have been defrauded before. I would share with you the story of how scammers impacted my family, and I have been in consumer protection my entire professional career, but I often share the story of my mom. When I was working in the Attorney General's office, my mom it was post 9/11. My mom was one of those patriotic Americans that was moved by what was happening in our country. The scammers figured that out, and they would come back and raise money from her in the name of charity. You've all heard of those charity scams, but my mom became every scammer's best friend because my dad had passed away, and so she was home alone. And I would go and speak with her pretty regularly about what she was doing. Again, it wasn't large amounts of money. It was the accumulation of small amounts of money. It was always often in the name of law enforcement. But the reason my mom became such a target was because of the fact that once you are scammed, you get on everyone's list. So you have to be mindful of the fact that when you make those decisions, that it's not going to just impact things today, it's going to continue to follow you. They do know that they call you a mark. The scammers pass your name around. My mom's name was passed around, I'm sure, many, many times. But it's really important for you to understand that, again, if you're alone, if you don't have someone else in the house in which to talk to help get some encouragement, and you become a victim, they'll keep coming back after you. So we tell, more importantly than ever, don't be alone. Talk to other people. The signs of victimization and exploitation are real. We do see this. Oftentimes we do get calls from individuals in the office who you know are alone and are being subjected to victimization. But these are some of the things to watch for. So again, in your groups and among social friends, just be aware of the fact that to be a victim of her fraud can really start having an impact on individuals and their well-being. So we do give advice, and I know you're going to have a chance to hear from some of the other speakers today along those words of advice, but probably some of the best self-defense that I can offer to you is beware the invest today pitch. Like, there is no investment out there where you have to make the decision today. It doesn't work that way. If you're making a financial decision, you need to have time, and you should have time, and any promoter ought to give you the time. So no investment has to be made today. It's really important for you to fully understand the investment. And again, that's a lot of times people make decisions, even in the world of finance, we sometimes make decisions just based on a promised return. It's really important to understand what you're investing in. Because if you try to understand what you're investing in, you can ask for documentation, you can ask for information, you can double check by contacting our office. But it's really important to understand what you're doing. Because if you put that responsibility on yourself, you're much less likely to be scammed, because the scammer will have to explain it to you. And a lot of scammers, again, they're appealing to fear and they're appealing to emotion. They really don't want to give you facts. So demand the facts. The other thing is just with Martha Joe, is if you think you potentially, even you have a suspicion that someone is attempting to victimize you with fraud, report it. Because so often there's unreported activity going on in our country that involves scams. And if you let us know ahead of time, we can contribute either within the state of Iowa or even nationally. We can contribute to some of the information gathering that allows law enforcement to stop it in its tracks. So please report it if it's an investment, to the insurance department. The last is stop, call, confirm. Stop is a repeat of don't do it today. Call means call our office and then confirm what you're doing again. Think twice, double check, take your time. There is no hurry. And the last thing is, remember, you're not alone. Again, those of us at the Iowa Insurance Division and the Attorney General's office, as well as your local sheriff, we are invested in how things are going for you. So don't ever feel like or view that you stand alone. Just a couple of comments on issues associated with how to assist aging individuals. There are tools available, and I would recommend that you take a look at the pamphlet, the booklet that's been given to you, to get a better understanding. But if you think you're at the place in life where you want some legal assistance in how you are going about making decisions, it's not just a matter of talking to your family and friends, but you, through power of attorney or through a conservatorship, you can make some decisions that better equip you to deal with those issues associated with aging. There are lots of resources available to help those that are at that place in life where they want to make that decision. It's a good decision for everyone at some point in their life if they reach that place where they need that kind of assistance in making financial decisions. But if you go that route, it's really important to do it right. You know, we do get complaints from people that are victimized even through some of those processes. So we provide you some resources that we describe as elder law. Encourage you to consider it, think about it, and if you make those choices, we want to make sure to help you make good decisions. So with that, I know you may have some questions. We'll be happy to take those at the end. So make a note, keep track of your questions, and we'll have a panel discussion later. But it's now my opportunity to introduce to you someone who I consider to be a really good friend. I've had the chance to work with this individual now for a number of years. So please join me in welcoming Al Perales of the Attorney General's Office.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you. Yeah, thank you to Doug. I just appreciate his, the insurance division along with the Iowa Attorney General's Office. One of our top priorities, and I think you can agree, is just raising awareness and educating consumers, Iowans. And I have a ring back here. Are you guys okay? Are you guys hearing a ring back, or is that just me? Yeah. Is there any, you want me to keep going? All right, I'll keep going. Again, thank you, Doug. I thought I'd start out with something funny. It's always good to laugh, isn't it? Unfortunately, there was this plane, and it was about ready to crash. And there were 4 passengers, but only 3 parachutes. The first passenger was a heart surgeon. And he said, "My patients need me." So he grabbed the first parachute and jumped off. The second passenger was a rocket scientist. And he said, "My country needs me. I'm one of the smartest men in the world." So he grabbed the second parachute and jumped off. The third passenger was Pope John Paul. And he told the fourth passenger, a 10-year-old Boy Scout, he said, "Son, I'm old and frail. I don't have much time left. You go ahead and take that last parachute." And the 10-year-old Boy Scout responded, "Sir, that's okay. The smartest man in the world just took off with my backpack." And one of the reasons we really enjoy telling that little joke is because one of the themes, and you've already heard it today, and I tell you, we can't say it enough, is to double check, double check, double check. And by double check, I'm saying to double check before you sign on that dotted line, agreeing to some services or buying merchandise. That you double check before you give information over the phone, or respond to a text or an email or a postcard. That you take the time to take extra steps to say, "You know what? I'm going to look into this a little bit further." Again, double check. We can't say it enough. One of the reasons we're here today is to deputize you. After today, you will all be deputized as Iowa fraud fighters. And we're thankful that you're here. And we're hoping that you learn something. That's my hope. But more importantly, I hope that you share it. I hope you share it with someone, a friend, family member, loved one. It's amazing to me how much times have changed. I mean, I was born in the early 70s, and just how this world has become so much smaller with technology. And there's been some good with that, but also there's been a lot of bad. Scammers have an avenue through the phone, through the internet, through postcards, through many various ways to get a hold of everyone in this room. And scammers know that over 80% of financial wealth and over 50% of discretionary income is owned by people like you. And they would like nothing more than to get their hands on that money and your information. Again, in my experience, I've been working at the Attorney General's office for about 15 years. As Doug said, scams come in all shapes and sizes. They could come from a knock on the door, a postcard, an email, a text, the internet. And there's one thing that holds true with these scams. With many of these scams, they want to do one thing. They want to gain your trust. They want to gain your trust. Why? Because they want to steal your information and steal your money. If you had the opportunity to sit in my chair for 1 month, you would hear stories. You would hear a story about family farmers in Northwest Iowa, good people who lost about $450,000 to a scammer. And do you know how the scammer got a hold of them? Do you know how he entered the door into their lives? Through a simple game called Words with Friends. It's amazing what they do to get a hold of you. Or you would have talked to a sweet gal from DeWitt, Iowa, who got a call that she'd won the Publishers Clearinghouse, $50,000 in Mercedes-Benz. And she lost $50,000. You would have talked to a gentleman from Grinnell, Iowa, 70-year-old gentleman. He got a call that his grandson was in trouble. And do you know the scammer came to his door? And he gave the scammer $10,000 cash. That's how strong these scams are. You would have talked to a gal not far from here who thought she was in love, who was communicating with somebody. Did she lose $100,000? No. 250? No. 750,000? No. She lost almost $1 million, over $900,000 to a scammer. And that's why we're here. Scams are good. The scammers, as Doug said, they're playing the con game, the confidence game. And what are they looking for? They're looking for a willing victim. They're looking for someone that's going to go and jump the hoops through them. And how they do it? They create a situation. They create a situation that's so strong that while you're going through it, it seems so real. Many times I get asked, Al, why are they focused on older Iowans? Why are they focused on us? Some things that come to mind are time and money. You've worked hard all your lives. You're available. Another thing that comes to mind is that you're Iowa nice, slow to be assertive. And I think scammers know that, and they'll try to use it against you. Another thing that comes to play, and many times we find that Iowans are lonely. They're isolated. Scammers are looking for the widowed, the isolated, the lonely, because they know they can keep them away from everybody and control them. Also, they know older Iowans come from a great generation, a generation where a handshake, your word, trust and faith, and all those good things meant something. So if you ever get a call from someone asking for money and they're using faith or they're using trust and you need to trust me, you need to be careful. We've also found the reason older Iowans are more likely to get targeted is because many times we find that older Iowans, they don't even know they've been defrauded. Or they don't know who to call. But more often than not, we find that many older Iowans, they don't say anything. They don't tell anybody. Why? Because they're ashamed. The gal that I told you about, she lost $900,000. She went on vacation just recently with her son. And I called her and asked her how it went. And could you imagine? She hasn't told any of her family and lost all the money. They think she still has that money. And just the feelings and the emotional stress that she's going through. My heart goes out to her. Scammers don't care about you. They don't care about anybody in this room. They want to steal from you. As we get older too, older Iowans, we change physically, mentally. There's a gal from Iowa City. Her name's Dr. Denberg. And she found that as we get older, our frontal lobe, where all our decision making is made, it atrophies. It gets weaker. So it's easier for an older Iowan to believe something that is not true. But it's important to know that anybody, no matter your age, no matter your upbringing, your religious background, your cultural background, your educational background, anybody can be a victim of fraud. I've talked to people, attorneys, lawyers, from all walks of life who said, Al, I'd be able to catch a fraud. I'd be able to catch it right away. Let them try it. And I say, you need to be careful about doing that because scammers are really good at what they do. They're really good at creating smoke and mirrors, creating something to feel so real and so good. For example, I told you about a little gal from DeWitt who lost $50,000. She came to a fraud fighters. I invited her to the fraud fighters that we just had in Clinton, Iowa. And she came. And I gave her a hug. It was nice to see her. But before that, I had visited her at her home, tried to talk to her about the scam. I thought I had got through her that this is a scam, don't do it. And that day of the fraud fighter, she came with me with a little piece of paper. She said, Al, this is a number to the Federal Reserve Bank. They told me that my money, the $2 million that I'm supposed to win, they told me that it's there. And to call this number, they have the account number, and could you just check this for me? Could you just check it and tell me yes or no? Again, this is how strong scams are. They still had her held. So while she was there, I called him. I called him in front of everybody. And I have a copy of or a little bit of the recording here so you can hear it.
Welcome to the Federal Reserve Bank Claims Processing and Verifications Department. All calls are recorded and monitored for security and training purposes. The Federal Reserve Bank maintains trust accounts for individuals to access it at any time. Please enter your access code to verify your account. Or press 1 to speak with a banker. Hello?
Hello, how you doing? This is Al Perales with the Iowa Attorney General's office. Who am I speaking with?
What did you say?
This is Al Perales with the Iowa Attorney General's office. And who am I speaking with?
You're speaking to Mr. Mark Baxter.
Okay, Mr. Baxter. And who do you work for?
I work for the Federal Reserve Government.
Okay, all righty. And where are you located?
We locate in Port Washington, New York.
Okay.
And who am I speaking to? Why are you asking me so much questions? Who am I speaking to?
My name is Al. Again, my name is Al, and I'm an investigator with the Iowa Attorney General's office, and we investigate scams.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And what are some of the scams you're investigating now?
A sweepstakes scam.
Mm-hmm.
So-
In regards to whom name?
The gal's name is Rosemary. And you called her and told her that there was an account number, and I wanted to check this account number.
Uh-huh. Go ahead.
It's 4769.
Go ahead. And what happened here?
I'm sorry? So I'm
Who did
trying...
she tell you to talk to? Who did she tell you to talk to, sir?
She didn't give me a name. She just told me to call the Federal Reserve Bank. But in talking to you, I can tell that you're not the Federal Reserve Bank, and that you're a scam. And that you're a scam.
Okay.
Okay? So I'm going to request that you stop calling her or contacting her, and I'm going to investigate this to the fullest that I can. So I appreciate your time, and stop scamming people in Iowa. Thank you.
So in that call, when we first heard it, we heard a recording. It sounded real. Oh my gosh, the Federal Reserve Bank, hey, hit this number to talk to somebody. It felt real. And that's what the scammer wants to do. But of course, when we talked to him, he really didn't have any answers. Usually someone they'll be happy to give you information and happy to give you, but he was hesitant. In fact, he was kind of combative. So then what we did was we called the real Federal Reserve Bank. And we have a recording of that.
Good afternoon, Federal Reserve Board. Lola speaking. How may I help you?
Hey, Lois. Hey, this is Al Perales with the Iowa Attorney General's office. How you doing today?
Doing great, Al. How are you?
I'm doing great. I just want to give you a quick call. We were looking into this matter where I know it's a fraud, but a consumer had given me a piece of paper with the Federal Reserve Bank number that she needed to call. They told her that that's where her money was. So I just thought I'd make a courtesy call. I know what you're going to tell me, but she said that the number was 888-852-6562. And I was just wondering if that's an official number of the Federal Reserve Bank.
No, sir. That number is not associated with the Federal Reserve at all.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you for calling. Have a great day. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
All right, so we double checked. We double checked and we found out that, hey, that's not the real number to the Federal Reserve Bank. But again, to her, the way they were talking to her, they made her feel like it was, but it wasn't. So that's why we always say double check. Really quick, why do scams work? I mean, when you think about it, I mean, scammers know. I mean, how many of us would love to win the lotto? I'm the first one to raise my hand, okay? How many of us would love to, how many of us would love help with our problems? I think we all would. How many of us, when we're in trouble, we have a parking ticket or a speeding ticket, or how many of us want to take care of it right away? We want to put it behind us and take care of it. I think we all would. And how many of us, when we don't understand, we're all maybe getting a little older, maybe getting into computers and laptops and tablets, and sometimes it's hard to understand. How many of us want help with them sometimes, or be able to talk to somebody and ask questions? I think we all do. And how many of us want a connection with somebody, want to feel loved? I think we all do. And what a scammer does is they'll create a scam around that situation. We want to win something. Sweepstakes scam. We want to take care of our problems. Hey, we're the IRS. We're the Sheriff's Department. You need to take care of this right now and pay this, or we're going to come and arrest you. You want to connect with somebody. The sweetheart scam. Scammers, what they do is they create a strong situation. I like using the acronym TIP. TIP. So with all scams, especially imposter scams, so what we're talking about today, the scammer will introduce a threat. And again, the threat can come in all shapes and sizes. But the threat is to do one thing in your life. It's supposed to raise your emotions. And the threat can be good or it can be bad. The threat can be, hey, you've won the lotto. You've been approved for a grant. We're the IRS. You're in trouble with your taxes. Or we're the Social Security Administration. Or, hey, we're with Amazon, and you've ordered something, and you need to confirm it. They are all, the scammer wants to introduce a threat and raise your emotions. And while your emotions are raised, we all know how it feels to be really excited, right? It's easy to move forward when we're excited. We also all know how it feels to be fearful and in fear. What do we want to do? We want to get out of it and move out of it as fast as we can. And scammers know that. Then scammers bring in immediacy, the I, immediacy, a sense of urgency that you have to do something now or there's consequences. And then they're always going to ask for payment. They're always going to ask for payment. And usually it's going to be in ways that you have no safeguards, no defenses. They're going to ask for a gift card. They're going to ask you to send cash. They're going to ask for you to wire money. So if you ever come across a situation where there's a threat, there's immediacy, and they're asking for money, payment, it's a scam. Some of the scams that I'm seeing out there, I just want to kind of go through them really quick. The Facebook grant scam. And the Facebook grant scam is where you get a message from somebody that maybe you haven't talked to in a long time through Messenger, and they say something like, hey, how you doing? And you're like, hey, I'm doing great. Hey, you won't believe this, but I just got this $60,000 grant. And I was talking to this guy, his name is Bob Johnson, and I was looking at the paperwork, and your name is on the list. You're available to get this grant. It's really easy. Look here's the picture of the money that I got. And they send you a picture. And you're like, oh my gosh, all I got to do is call this Bob guy? Yeah, here's his number. And you call. And the reason the scam works is because you think you're getting this information from a friend or a loved one, maybe that you haven't communicated in a while. But then you call, and they're really good, and they want to make you feel good and say, oh, yep, this money's yours. Well, why am I getting it? Well, you've never been in trouble, and these are for people that have shopped at Walmart. And well, everybody shops at Walmart. But they'll try to tell you something to make it seem real and believable. Oh, I shop at Walmart. Okay. And then you call, and then again, they scam you. They want you to send money. The Google search scam. Remember, I told you that we are wanting more to get help with tablets or with our phones or whatever. So what the scammers do is that they pay. So when you search Amazon help, Apple customer service, HP computer help desk, they come up as 1, 2, or 3. And it'll say HP customer service, and it'll have a phone number. But when you call them, guess what you're doing? You're calling the scammer. You're talking to them. But it'll feel, just like what we heard, it'll feel like Amazon or HP or Apple, but it's not them. They'll be very friendly, but there's one thing they're going to do. They're going to ask for money and for information. The IRS scam. We all know that one. They call you and they try to scare you. Again, they bring in fear. We had a gentleman come into our office not long ago, and he came in and he sent money to the IRS scam. And I asked him, I said, hey, how did you pay them? And he opened up this bag, and there were $20,000 of gift cards, of Apple iTunes gift cards that he paid because he was in trouble. Now, it sounds kind of silly. Would you think that the American government would ask for payment in Apple gift cards? No. But again, the scam is so strong, and he was in fear, and all he wanted to do was get out of it. Another scam, the romance scam. The romance scam, last year alone, $305 million was lost. And that's only what was reported to the FTC. I couldn't imagine to think how much people have lost. And it's one of the most evil scams because it deals with good things, love, hope, and a good future. But the scammer turns it into something ugly, where they make you feel good and make you feel, they give that person, they make them feel loved. They talk to them every day, and then they steal from them. Again, we have a gal that lost almost $900,000. I talked to a gal just last week. She lost $60,000 to somebody. I had a gal that called me, and she's like, hey, can you look into somebody for me? I'm like, yeah. Well, there's this guy, and he says he's an engineer, and he's living in Africa, and he's from the United States, but he's moved here. I've sent him quite a bit of money. She gave me the reasons. I go, hey, you don't need to send any more. You don't need to tell me anymore. He's a scammer. He's a scammer. And she didn't want to believe me. And again, that's how strong these scams are. The jury duty scam. The jury duty scam is where they call you and they tell you that, Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith, how you doing? This is Deputy Johnson from Jasper County, and you had jury duty yesterday, and you failed to appear. And because you failed to appear, there's a warrant out for your arrest. And if you don't pay now, again, there's going to be a warrant out for your arrest. Sounds pretty scary, right? We had calls from Jasper County that was happening. And they called me and gave me the number. So I called the number. And it was 1 digit off the real Jasper County Sheriff's Department. And when I called them, it sounded like the Jasper County Sheriff's Department. It said hello. It gave me all the prompts. If you want to talk to the sheriff, press 1. If this is about this, press 2. But it said if this is about that you missed about jury duty, hit 5. Again, that wasn't on the real one. But I hit 5, and I talked to this gentleman just for a little bit, just for a small moment. But while I was talking to him, I could hear people in the background putting the fear of God in people and trying to scare them to give money. So be careful. Really quick, 10 tips. 10 tips to protect yourself. Number 1, if you don't recognize a number, don't answer the call. It's okay to be not to be Iowa nice. Number 2, never give out your personal or financial information. your bank account, social security number, date of birth, credit card information. Number 3, never wire money or send gift cards. I always tell, it says gift cards on there for a reason. They're not supposed to be used for payment. Scammers are using gift cards now. Number 4, always resist the pressure to act quickly and act secretly. Number 5, don't always trust your caller ID. The jury scam that I just told you about in Jasper County, it said Jasper County Sheriff's Department, right on their caller ID. So don't always trust it. Always double check. Number 6, never pay for a prize. I always tell, with cars and trips, if you have to pay for a prize, I always say it's not a prize. Number 7, deal locally, deal face-to-face. And I put this one on here because many of us are using the internet and social media to buy stuff, to buy a car or whatever. And scammers, what they do is they'll list items on there, and they'll have it for a really, really good price. For example, someone not too far from here, from Cedar Rapids, he called our office, and he saw a RV, a $30,000 RV. I'm sorry, a $300,000 RV, and it was for sale for $80,000. What a deal, right? And when he called, they said, well, hey, you can't see it. It's in storage. I'm overseas. I'm military. But if you don't want it, that's okay. I got 5 people waiting. No. I want it. Where do I send the money? And he sent $80,000, and he has no RV. So I put this on there to tell you folks, go kick the tires. Go test drive it. Go see it in person. Another thing, puppies, kittens. I can't tell you how many people get taken by a cute little picture, and they send the money, and no puppy or kitten ever comes. Number 8, always take the time to go through your credit cards, your bank statements on a monthly basis. Number 9, remember the big 3. Remember the big 3. The tip, that the scammer will always bring in a threat. He'll bring in immediacy, and he'll want payment. Also, another big 3, the scammer will always bring in excitement or fear or a situation that pulls at your heartstrings to get you to act. And number 10, we can't say it enough, double check, double check, double check. Since we were small, firefighters taught us to do 3 things: to stop, drop, and roll. And we're close to having what the insurance division has. Ours is stop, think, and call. That if you're ever in a situation like I mentioned, if you're ever in a situation where someone's trying to raise your emotions, that you stop, that you hang up the phone, that you think, I remember being at that Iowa Fraud Fighters event, and I was told that if there's a situation that pulls at my heartstrings, that they bring excitement or fear, and they're asking for money right away, it's a scam. And call our office, let us know. And we want to let you know that you have friends here. You have friends at the Iowa Attorney General's office. You have friends at the Iowa Insurance Division, at SHIIP, and we're here because we care. We're here because we want to help. And if you ever have a situation or an issue, a scam, call me. Call Al because he's your pal. Thank you. We have Kristen Griffith next, she's from SHIIP. Thank you.
Thanks, Al. Good afternoon, everybody. So my name again is Kristen Griffith, and I'm the director of the Senior Health Insurance Information Program, which is known as SHIIP, and the Senior Medicare Patrol, which is known as SMP. And these are both federally. Sorry, I'm getting the sign from the back of the room that I'm not loud enough. Is that better? All right, thanks. These are both federally funded programs that are operated through the Iowa Insurance Division. Now, through SHIIP and SMP, we actually have a network of over 135 sites across the state that support 350 SHIIP SMP volunteer counselors. And this is an absolutely amazing network of volunteers. I wanted to do a quick shout out to say thank you to those folks. I know at least we have one retired SHIIP counselor in the audience today, and we may have some others. So just to thank them for the amazing work that they do. And what SHIIP SMP volunteers provide is counseling to Medicare beneficiaries and their families, so all of those complex and difficult questions that folks may have around Medicare. And they also help by providing support for Iowans that may have been impacted by Medicare fraud, abuse, or errors. And that's very big business across the U.S. There are billions and billions of dollars that are lost each and every year to Medicare fraud, error, and abuse. I want to start today by talking about two of the most common scams that we actually see in the state of Iowa when it comes to Medicare scams. Now, the first one is one that's been around for a very long time, and that is folks that want to get your Medicare number. Has anybody ever gotten a call where somebody says they need your Medicare number? Yeah, I see some heads nodding out there. So it happens very, very often. A lot of times somebody will call and say that they are calling from CMS, which is the branch of the government that provides Medicare, and that they just need to confirm your number. That's all they need. Or they may be calling to say, hey, you actually qualify for a very special Medicare card. A lot of times it's gold or it's black. Just last week we heard of a new purple card, which is a brand new one for us. And to give you that new card, all we need to do is confirm your number. I know you heard both Doug and Al speak earlier about the fact that the fraudsters like to use intimidation to coerce you. They're trying to get you to give them that number. That's their end goal. And so we also have folks that call and tell us that people have called them on the phone, a fraudster saying, I need to get your Medicare number right now. I need to confirm that number. Otherwise, you're going to have to pay this medical bill out of your own pocket. They're trying to frighten you into giving that number. Or if you don't give me your Medicare number, then I'm going to escalate this call and you're going to need to speak to my manager because you're doing something wrong. So again, fraud and intimidation go together. And their goal at the end of the day is to get your Medicare number so they can charge fraudulent claims to Medicare. That's always their end goal. The second most common scam that we see in Iowa is about free medical equipment. And have you all seen those commercials that come on late at night talking about free medical equipment? Yeah, you've probably gotten postcards in the mail. You've probably had folks call you at home. The most common one right now is braces. Not teeth braces, because I had some questions about that earlier, but braces that go on your back or on your elbow or on your knee. So somebody will call you on the phone and say, let's talk about pain that you may be having. How would you rate that pain? How serious is it? Well, we can actually send you this very amazing brace that's going to fix all of your problems. We just need to get your Medicare number, and we'll get that right in the mail to you. What's going to happen is you're going to give them your Medicare number, and a few weeks later, you're going to get a very small piece of elastic in the mail, and they're going to charge Medicare hundreds and hundreds of dollars to provide that. That's a really popular scam that's happening right now. The second one we've been hearing a lot about recently is genetic testing, which is also called DNA testing, or sometimes it's called cancer screening. And this could happen if you go down to the farmer's market. It could happen when somebody calls you at your home. And what they want to do is take a swab from your cheek, and they're going to send it away to the special lab that's going to give you all these amazing medical results back in the mail. That is also a scam. Any kind of cancer screening, genetic testing, that's only going to happen in a doctor's office. So don't be fooled by that. Don't let them take that swab. Don't give them your Medicare number for that service. It's a scam. So let's talk a little bit about what you can actually do to prevent Medicare fraud. There are three things I want to talk about, and these are three easy tips that you can do. The first is going to be to guard your card. You want to treat your Medicare number just like you would treat a credit card number. Don't give it out to anybody that you wouldn't trust to help you with your healthcare decisions. Of course, your doctor's going to get it, your hospital, family members that may be helping with your healthcare, but don't give it out to anybody else. There is nobody that will be calling you and asking you for that number over the phone that needs it. One thing we always say is if Medicare calls you for your number, or if your insurance plan calls you for your number over the phone, does that really make sense? Wouldn't they already have your information on file? So stop and think about that before you give it out. The second thing we say is don't answer your phone. Once a scammer gets you to respond to a phone call, they're going to keep working on you and keep calling. You heard earlier from Al about spoofing, how they can change that number to make it appear like it's a real number. So don't answer your phone. Let all of those calls go through to your voicemail, to your answering machine. If it's a legitimate call, they're going to leave a message and you can call them back. And the third thing we talk about is tracking the health care that you receive. So out there on the table earlier, and I think I still have a few left, we have something called a healthcare tracker. You really want to make sure that you are reviewing all of your Medicare statements. And those are the statements that are going to come in the mail quarterly from Medicare. They're going to list out all of the services that you received, who received them, what date it was. If you track that on a piece of paper or on an Excel spreadsheet and a healthcare tracker, if you track those as you receive those services, then you can compare what's in your book to what's on your Medicare statement. And that is an absolutely great way to make sure that there aren't any errors or abuse or other issues happening with your Medicare statements. But let's talk about what to do if you or somebody you know has actually been impacted by Medicare fraud. The first thing is don't hesitate to ask questions. Errors do happen. Medicare billing is, not surprisingly, very complex, so don't worry about reaching out to your healthcare provider to ask questions about how something was billed or why it was billed, or maybe there was an error around a service that wasn't actually received. So ask those questions. But if it is something larger and you do believe that you've been impacted or you've been a victim of Medicare fraud, please reach out to us at the SHIIP SMP office. We've got our toll-free number right up on the screen. It's 1-800-351-4664. We can help you out, and we can also connect you to a local SHIIP counselor who can answer questions and also do things like help you learn how to read your Medicare statement or answer other questions you may have about different plans. A lot of times the information that comes out about a Medicare Advantage plan or something you see on the news or you might get in the mail can be confusing. So those counselors are there, those volunteer counselors are there to help answer some of the questions you may have about the Medicare plans and services. You can also use our website, which is up there, www.ship.iowa.gov, to find local offices. There's a little tab on there that says Find a Counselor. You can go there and find a counselor by your county. If you or somebody you know is impacted by Medicare fraud, the most important thing you want to do is make sure that you get a new Medicare card. You want a new card that has a new number on there. So you're going to want to call 1-800-MEDICARE, and you're going to tell them that your card has been compromised and you need to get a new one. That's the single most important thing you can do. But also reach out to us because we do help track Medicare fraud across the state. We collect information on it that then goes up to some of the national systems so that the government can also look and catch some of these fraudsters that are working across the nation. In closing, I just want to say that all of us, SHIIP, SMP, the Iowa Insurance Division, everybody want to make sure that your hard-earned healthcare dollars are being used for legitimate healthcare costs. We know right now that 1 out of every $3 is lost to healthcare fraud, errors, or abuse, and that's something that we need your help to stop. So call us anytime you have a question about Medicare, anything related to Medicare, whether it's fraud or just questions about your plans. And please make sure that your friends and family know about this free and confidential service that is offered through the state of Iowa. And thank you. I'm now going to introduce Sonia Selmeyer, who is the consumer advocate for the Iowa Insurance Division, and she's going to tell you about a really great event that's going to be happening right here pretty soon.
Thank you, Kristen. Hi, I'm Sonia Selmeyer. I am the Consumer Advocacy Officer for the Iowa Insurance Division, and I want to invite all the women in the room to an event on August 19th in this exact same room with free food again. This time it'll be a brunch. It's our Smarter Money. It's our first ever annual event. We will have 2 panels on that day to discuss financial issues that all women may face, give you some education, and get you to a point where you're feeling better about your finances and your financial wellness overall. We are going to have a keynote speaker in addition to those panels, and that is Manisha Thakor. She's a nationally known speaker. She's the founder of Money Zen, if you want to check that website out before the event. But I'd like to invite you all to come. The overall goal of the conference, like I said, is financial wellness and getting you towards a financially secure retirement. Just because you're retired doesn't mean your financial obligations and issues may go away. So even if you are retired, please join us. We'll talk about issues that that affect retired women as well, like long-term care insurance, reverse mortgages, Medicare, things like that. And we will also reiterate some of these consumer protection issues that we've talked about today. And if you can't make it, feel free, the website was up there. Feel free to check out the website, but please share that information. smarther.iowa.gov is the website, and share that information with all your female friends, daughters, co-workers, friends. Men are welcome too, but I will warn you, it will probably be a room full of mostly women, but you are more than welcome to attend as well. And I promise you, you would learn something as well. But I invite you to that, and I hope to see all of you there. Thank you.